I'm looking at Olympus Sonority Plus. I did a video earlier on the Olympus and also using this software, but I missed out a really important factor, and that's using the podcast. I received an email from my YouTube channel and they asked me how to do this, so I'm going to show you that quickly now. Seeing the Olympus Sonority software at the top here, remember all these folders are stored in your documents on your computer, from physics all the way down to folder F. They will be named A all the way down to E originally. Now underneath here, let me show you, you've got podcast tray, channel guide and podcasts. Now if I actually click on the channel guide, these are all pre-installed podcasts you've got here already in channels. So if I go down here, click on them, you can subscribe to them and choose which one you want to subscribe to. Now I've been asked how to put MP3s and also how to do podcasts using Olympus Sonority. So what I want you to do is to click on the podcast option. Once you're on there, do a right click on the podcast and I want you to select register podcast by left clicking. You need to put an address in there so it then can register to that podcast. So as an example, I've opened up the website and I found this website here, LBC, but obviously there's thousands of different websites out there. It's got the option here, as you can see, I can download the latest episode on the podcast for LBC, or if you look down here I can even subscribe. Now it says subscribe here, it says subscribe on iTunes or copy this into your podcast software. As I'm using my podcast software, I'm going to hold the left button and highlight that hyperlink or URL, right click and copy. Then I open up Olympus Sonority and I'm going to paste it into where it says register podcast. Then just do a left click on OK and it says the program subscription is successfully registered. So you see it pop up here now in the podcast option, let it just download. And if I click the plus button for sub menu underneath, we should then have various podcasts in there. I could go up to the first podcast, do a right click and select download files. So if I left click download files, you can see it's now downloading that podcast. Give it a little while to download. You can see on the left the percentage, and that's how you download your podcasts. And you can see the date here on the right as well. If I click on that now, I should be able to double click it and play.
Brian, call 0345 6060.
And if I click stop at the top, that will stop it. And that's how you add your own podcast through that way. You need to put the address in. I'm going to come back out of that podcast tray and close that. I've also been asked how to put MP3s because also you can download your podcasts in MP3 format. So if that's the case, again on LBC, I've got an option here where it says download the latest episode. I'm going to left click that.
This is LBC,
And then it'll
leading
start playing
Britain's
back to me.
Conversation.
I've also been asked how to put MP3s into your Olympus Sonority, so I'm going to show you that now. So I'm going to close the internet. The easiest way I find is to drag and drop. So if I hold the left button and then drag that to the right and come down, you can see an MP3 I've got there. So if I just come into here, hold the left button, drag that out so I can see my folders, which is my DM670 that's plugged in. Hold the left button, then drag that file where you want it. I'm going to drop that into folder E. Click into folder E, and there we go. If I maximise the window, we now have that file in there, MP3. So drag and dropping works quite well, or you can do it from the file at the top there and import. Also we have an option here, as you can see, which is my podcast. Now you know I did the podcast earlier. If I click on the sub menu and click podcast, there it is. And you see it's automatically uploaded onto my podcast, onto my recorder. So if I click the plus button, I now have them there. So that's how easy it is to use your podcasts and import MP3s into your Olympus Sonority software. Hope that was a help.